Hey, what's up, y'all? And good morning. And today I wanted to give a lesson on how to decode your first movie if you haven't done it. And I'm going to back up all my abilities biblically because I think that's the best. I know it's the best #1 book ever written. The Bible's the strongest lingo of words that's been connected to mankind since the beginning. And so that's why I use that book. And it's the book of all books, right? Because it's like the travel mechanism of man. So I'm going to go through these scriptures first, and hopefully this can paint a picture for you. This is more for the standard modern day Christian, because this is all part of the Holy Bible, so it's not going to really connect with the Quran believers, Buddha, whoever else. So first of all, when you understand what you're trying to decode, right, that's actually biblical. So let's go through some biblical times where people will decode, right? So let's start in Revelation chapter 10. So this is chapter 10 about the angel and the little scroll, So it says, but in the days when the seventh angel is about to sound his trumpet, the mystery of God will be accomplished, just as he announced to his servants, the prophets. So you're going to have this moment where there's no more mystery. Right? And in order to not have any mystery, everything has to be decoded. It's going to get to a point where technology, it's got to a point where we've decoded all of it. See what I'm saying? The world calls it singularity. We call it the end of days, Armageddon, and stuff like that. But even the Bible, so when I'm going to help you decode this movie, it's because we're right here in this Bible passage. So there's one. And then you also have another promise, a universal code that is attached to all these movies. And when Satan makes movies and when the kingdom of God makes movies, there's this universal code. And it's in Luke chapter 8, verse 17. It says, for there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought open to all. See, that right there, when God speaks that, Jesus speaks that, it's a universal code. So that's why you can go into these movies and find this stuff, because they're revealing it right in the open. But most people just don't want to understand. So there's that verse right there. And then you have the book of Daniel, where it talks about the reign of this fierce king in the last days. It says in the latter part, and I think this started with Catholicism, and then it's trickled down into more fierce kings, right? So it says in the latter part of their reign. See what I'm saying? The latter part of their reign. So it's talking about a group of individuals. It started with the Pope, who started changing rules, and then the Pope went to another Pope, and then it gets more and more wicked. It says, so in their latter reign, the latter part of their reign, when rebels have become completely wicked, right? There was a point where rebels were like, Star Wars, but it says when rebels have become completely wicked, a fierce-looking king, a master of intrigue, will arise out of the whole. So it talks about, you can connect this with the great apostasy, when there's a great falling away. And it says, a king of boldness and face, one who understands all riddles, shall arise. Right? He's going to understand and see through this. Not only him, but there's going to be many. Right? So you have many. See what I'm saying? Like, look how riddles unfold. There will be many, right? And what do our brains go to? Many, and many is attached to an individual, right? You know what I'm saying? It's funny. So then this happens before too, in the book of Isaiah with King Cyrus. God told King Cyrus, I will give you, Cyrus, the treasures of darkness and the hoards in secret places, that you may know that it is I, the Lord, the God of Israel, who called you by name. He straight up told this king, I will give you the treasures of darkness and the hoards in the secret chambers. He knew how to navigate through all these stuff, see? And so now let's break it down. We're going to break down Terminator 1 and 2. I watched it last night, Saturday, and so Terminator 1 is with Sarah Connor, where Terminator is, trying to attack her. And that one's hard for me to watch because I like the whole idea of Terminator being used for good. I do. So Terminator 1's hard for me because I think this movie connects with my family and my mom. And so it's a very difficult one to watch because they're, I can see through stuff. So first, let's break it down. So when you're watching a movie, it's going to take you a couple of times to really get tuned in to decoding a movie, because I noticed the first time watching a movie, your excitement is like a mask that masks over your ability to see certain things. You'll still catch some things, but your excitement is like a blocker. So your first roundabout watching a movie, your excitement's going to probably mask about 50% of the encoded messages. Because you're excited. You hear robots and war and stuff like that. And then if you watch movies with people, that's always going to do one of two things. Sometimes if you're a people person and you want to show off, you'll see extra and it'll actually help you. And because you always want to pause it and be like, did you catch that code? And then they'll get all peed off at you because they don't want to know. And then so like you have that, or you can watch the movie with somebody and it's going to actually create another blocker. You'll miss stuff because you're talking, and you're on the storyline, right? Because there's like a universal storyline. There's the basic storyline, there's the intermediate storyline, there's the expert storyline, and there's the universal storyline, right? And the universal storyline is where you find the depths of everything that movie has to evolve in, right? And this keeps building in your inner dialogue as you get smarter and wiser, right? So let's break it down. At this point, I'm not in my emotions, so I'm able to just sit and watch. I think I got a little teary-eyed at the end of the movie because of the dreams I've had in life. But so Sarah Connor, right? Her middle name is Jean - I put Jeanette, right? So, I connect stuff, immediately. Like my mom's middle name is Jean. Sandra Jean, right? Sandra Jean and Miller. So, and then you have the first t-shirt she's wearing is no names, but it's the Jetsons. And if you break down the term jet - sons, and then you can connect that immediately with the two towers that went down by two airplanes crash into a building, right? And these things came down. And you can also connect other things with jets that go down, like the dude in Russia, right, who airplane crash, they start talking about it. See, all this dialogues when I'm figuring this out, see? And they've been building this since 1984 when this movie came out. Probably sooner, or probably more. So she was wearing a shirt called the Jetsons, which represents two towers, jets. She had a pet iguana, so Rosa had a pet iguana. And the first thing she showed me was her pet iguana. One of the first, you always remember, like, book writers always say the best letters of your book are the first sentence of your chapter. So like that goes with people too. When you run into these dark people, they always make a first impression with something either sick, wicked, or a golden nugget puzzle piece for you. And so when I met this individual, Sarah had a pet iguana, and and then I met somebody who had a pet iguana, and they showed me, and they dressed it up in some like flannel shirt or something. And it was obviously important enough to show me a picture. So, and then the first club she goes to is called Technor. So it's this blinking light that's going tech, 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 tech. Right? And we know that has to do with coming AI. It's like a warning symbol. These movies have warning symbols for future people, right? Whenever like James Cameron, I think he's the director of this film, I'll check all their films they make too. Like he made the Titanic, he made The Abyss. He has a movie called The Abyss where these people dive into the abyss to try to find out what's down there. It's like the deepest of deeps. So I'll read you my log. I wrote, it says, I trip out on movies and how the builders come up with this stuff. It's a huge puzzle, Sarah has a lizard pet, Rosa has a lizard pet, and Jezebel, and naming the Jezebel fighter spot in the dog, right? So when you also have the pet, like Jezebel has a pet iguana, a lizard represents the fallen angels. And so when Rosa represents a lizard represents the fallen angel. And then when you have From Dusk Till Dawn, the two brothers, the Jetsons, who go in and they fight at this bar, right? See, bars are important too. and they fight this Jezebel lady who's beautiful Mexican girl, but then she turns into a lizard, and then she shows her true fruit. She wanted to pin down the main character with the tattoo, and he shot her, obviously, and she wanted to name him Spot and wanted him to be her pet, right? And so you can see how all this starts to build up in these movies. See what I'm saying? So all these movies have similar plots. They play off one another. And it's like I was born to see through it and finish the puzzle and teach people, right? So that's what I think my calling is. So people think I'm crazy, but I know better than that. I just have eyes to see through this stuff because I was born to understand it. Sarah in this movie says she was called, but she didn't want it. So like I've noticed Sarah Connor in this movie, she said a lot of things like some legend, like because the dude that came from the future called her a legend, and she didn't believe in herself. She's like, well, what? How am I a legend? Like some legend? I'm weak, and I didn't want this. And I always say that, dude. I always tell people I didn't choose this; it chose me, right? And it seems like a lot of like legends say that. So I said those same exact words till this day. I always say I didn't choose this, but it chose me. Yeah, at the same point, we know it's no literal machines and monsters anymore. It's a spirit inside and an anointing from heaven to complete the will of God. So obviously, when you watch these movies and you start connecting all these dots, you can take away the outer suit, right? So we know Godzilla is a human being. It's a titan. So, but the outer suit is like this reflection of their power, right? King Kong is the outer suit, but we know he's really a person. King Kong is an actual person. And they create this dialogue, this outer suit. Just like on Independence Day, you have those aliens that have an outer suit, right? All the fallen angels, all movies trickle down to them having an outer suit, right? They're kind of like reptilian lizard people, right? So, anyways, Sarah had dreams too about dogs. She mentioned this, like all of a sudden she'd wake up and she's like, "I was dreaming about dogs." So these are also warnings for somebody to hear, right? Like, how I said Minnie Mouse at the beginning of this video? I said that unaware. It just came out, but my mind was connecting it. See, so whenever this trickles out into the airwaves, Minnie, whoever Minnie is, because that's a person too, is going to be affected by that because it's a call to her, right? Just like you speak on Mickey and stuff. Whoever really Mickey is, he's implementing a real person. When you say those trigger words, it will do something to the soul of the individual. It's just how this cookie crumbles, right? So she has dreams about dogs. And Kyle says, yeah, we use dogs to spot Terminators. And in this video, all the dogs were German Shepherds. Part 1 and 2, all German Shepherds, right? Kyle said we use them to spot Terminators because these dogs would catch somebody and they'd smell them out. And they'd give them those evil eye, like, I know who you are, right? And they would bark at him. So I've also had dreams about dogs, And what's funny is Mom's cabin, when they were going to exit the city, right? Mom's cabin was in Big Bear. I grew up in a town called Arvin, California, that was set right under Big Bear Mountain. And Mama's cabin was on Big Bear Mountain, on Big Bear. And I lived right underneath that mountain in California, right? So this is where you start tripping out, you connect the dots. So I was raised in Arvin below Big Bear Mountain. So Sarah was known as a legend. At Aaron's, I was called Joshua the Legend. We'd have these meetings online and they'd go, Joshua the Legend, right? And I'm like, me? Why? And I'm just like, so I'm like, see what I'm saying? These have things to it. So these last days, polarized life sucks. So it sucks more for the main character because they always have the most pressure, it seems. So the last of the purpose-driven lives is it slowly but surely becomes the entire mob of humanity circulating these few people who have purpose left, right? And the so-called pyramids, they get their script flipped because God will take people like Sarah Connor and then demand the attention of the whole world. He'll take people like me. And poor nobody, I don't got no Fortune 500 company. And all of a sudden you'll say, how is this man or woman demanding the attention of the whole entire world? See what I'm saying? This is a God-sent thing. They're the holders of the mark, right? So, At the end of the movie, Sarah had this red Jeep too. She was at this gas station and she had a little red Jeep and she had a German Shepherd in the back, right? And she and John always had a German Shepherd to sniff out everything. And it says, so she took off through an open door, right? So this is what tripped me out at the end of the movie. I never caught this before. She's at a gas station. This little kid takes a picture of her and he wants to sell it to her. He sells her a picture, right? And he wanted $5, but she's like, "Cuánto? I'll give you 4." So she changed from 5 to 4, which has meaning too, right? And it was a picture of her in the Jeep, pregnant with the German Shepherd right there. And then all of a sudden, they went down this road. It was a desert road at the end of the movie. A 2-lane road running off into the mountains. Half of it was storm, half of it wasn't. And there were Joshua trees all over the place, right? And see, this tripped me out and I got a little emotional at this point because I've been at this same damn spot Sarah Connor was at the end of this movie when I was fasting over a marriage, and I fasted for 3 days, 3 nights. And I had a dream and woke up at 3 a.m. And at the end of that dream, an open door in Tony's bedroom happened and I was on a Harley Davidson. And I was on a highway. And I drove it. It was the same mountains that were in this damn movie. The only difference between my dream is there was telephone poles and power line. And I drove down that road. See what I'm saying? And we'll get into that because that's on part 2 as well. John, Terminator, Sarah end up on the same gas station, the same highway together. Right? So, you know what I'm saying? So she took through the open door of the lonely desert road, Joshua trees on both sides. I also had a dream of this with the Harley, you know, and I got emotional. When too many pieces match up, you'll get emotional, and that's normal, right? Because it becomes so real. When things start coming together like this, you go through this phase in life where to the modern sleepy Joe, they're going to go, excuse me. To the modern sleepy Joe, you have the terminology called extremism or conspiracy theorists, right? So to the modern mass member who's going with the flow, they're going to call you a conspiracy theorist, but they know you know the truth. So you have to, the reason why you get emotional, because all this stuff weighs on you at once, right? Like everyone called Sarah Connor a psychopath crazy woman. Right? You see what I'm saying? Until the dude started coming and killing people. And they went to her and said, "Who is this guy? Help us." And she didn't say a word at that point. She's like, and she went to sleep and got her little key and got out of there. Right? So, you know, so I thought of this right here as all, it becomes so real, I guess. I just can't handle it. And you back and forth in your mind, wondering when you're going to wake up from all this dream, but you never do because it's real. It's like it was destined by God to be the G-baby, as they call it. Or whatever, right? This is me talking. So that was Terminator 1. It ends on that desert road. I never caught that before. But the ending and beginning of movies are very important. You know, so when you want to pay attention, you know, at the ending of movies, that right there was such a huge puzzle piece, right? So Terminator 2. Arnold walked into a bar, and the first lit up sign you see in the bar was called Miller High Life, right? And so these things you got to pay attention. And there was a sign inside. It said Miller High Life. And this brings to my attention, you know, when I see something, I pay attention to what it attaches to immediately. So when I saw Miller High Life, I saw the MSDS chart, which you know is a material safety data sheet. And then the world decided to take off the M. They took off the material. But see, it meant more than that. You know, it meant something more. You know, to the average Joe, you're like, okay, they took off the M. But no, M is a very important letter in the industry, right? Miller is a very important name. Maxwell House, you know, all kind of stuff. So they removed this M for a reason, a global reason. And then the name of the bar was called the Corral. And see, when you go to Bakersfield, California, where I was raised, and you go down China Grade Loop, so you go down China Grade Loop, right? And then you go down China Grade Loop, and it turns and it runs right into Ethel's old corral bar. And there's a big old Indian statue out there, a chief Indian, right? So the bar corral was also in my hometown, right? And Arnold Schwarzenegger walks into this bar. See what I'm saying? And the name was Corral, in the middle of nowhere in Bakersfield. Cali also has a bar called the Old Corral. And what's funny is Arnold fought 3 men in this bar. John Wick's story, what do you hear about it? 3 men in a bar he killed with the pencil. See, they've been building up this bar scene before Keanu Reeves started even acting. See what I'm saying? The bar scene. Watch it yourself. You have the first guy who Arnold goes up after he's naked in there, and he puts that little mark on him, and he hits Arnold right on the heart. He burns him on the heart. And then, the guy's like, how come you ain't feeling no pain? And he breaks his arm and throws him on the stove. There's one. And then the other guy hits him in the head with a pool stick. And then he throws him through the window. That's 2. And then another guy shanks him with the knife. But then he pulls it out and he shoves it in that guy's back and pins him to the pool table. That was 3. He only fought 3 guys. John Wick's story, 3 guys. You hear my brother Timothy talk about 3 guys at a bar, right? This story has been being beefed up for like 50 years, dude. See what I'm saying? Are you catching this? Right? So Arnold fought 3 men. John Wick also fought 3 men at a bar. And that story has been beefed up for years, right? His mission starts on a bike. At Harley, he took the keys. This guy gave him the keys to his Harley, and Arnold's like, all right. And he, got on the bike, and he took off driving. So his mission starts on a bike, and also I think the T-1000 represents the devil, because of the name too. The T-1000, right? And we know we can connect this because in the Bible, the devil was... he was chained up for 1,000 years, right? That's why they put the T-1000 right there, because he was chained up for 1,000 years, and then when he's let loose, he was able to go hunt and stuff like that. And Terminator, he's a little, he's not no angel, but he chose to do his gift for good. And I guess the lesser of 2 evils is what you'd call Terminator. And so T-1000, it's because the devil was bound for 1,000 years in chains. So the Terminator must be number 2, which is weaker than number 1, right? That's why you have T-1000. He can do all this stuff, and Terminator's kind of like just rolling on heart and pure will or something. So you have, and the stepmom's first words to John Connor in this movie. Pay attention. Clean up your fucking pigsty. Trash. John is already painted as sloppy, not clean, and he needs to take out the trash, right? And I connect this on a deep level because of the woman, Rosa. First thing she's obsessed with taking out the trash. And she was so obsessed, when she would follow me around town and have her little puppets talk about trash. People would come up and sweep trash around me. I'd be at a donating plasma. All the women would be like, pick up the trash, lady, pick up the trash, pick up the... And it was that much of a control freak syndrome. Just like the step parents, right? The step parents represent the Raven program, who are watching over this child, right? They represent the Raven. Rosa represents the Raven program, right? Who feed and water and look after babies that they really hate. So, you know what I'm saying? So you have that. And see, I just picked that up right now, explaining. So, you know what I'm saying? So you have that right there. And he's a bad cleaner. This reminds me of the Mexicans also I met in Las Vegas. And they tended, they'll meet me, but then their first words, they're all, we're the guys who pick up after you, and clean up your mess, right? See what I'm saying? And Sarah, the legend, ends up becoming a diagnosed schizophrenic in this movie. Because they just, now they're watching her. So when you see her in these things, you see people in other rooms on computers watching her, typing about her. They're just observing her. And so that's what nobody will call, that's what all nobodies will call the ones who have their eyes open. You'll be considered schizo, mentally ill. That's just how it goes. That's how stupid people judge real smart people. Remember, you're probably too smart and you're being judged by stupid people. That's what really trickles down to this, right? So, and then when you look at the pencil thing, Sarah's like a legend because she looks at the doctor and says, how's your knee? Because she stabbed the doctor in the knee. See, there's something that has to do with like fighting with a pencil. John Wick, he killed 3 people. And the guy says, with a fucking pencil. Sarah stabs this guy with a fucking pen, right? Rosa and everybody talk to me about what? What is so big right now? You got a pen? Can you sign? John Wick, everybody has their price, bitch. And he says, not this bitch, right? He wouldn't sign for his price. Sarah's talking about shanking with a pin. John Wick in the bar, a pin, right? These things are freaking huge and they've been building this up for years. You know what I'm saying? So John used a pencil for those 3 idiots at the bar. The world studies Sarah Connor at this point. And the pin number, John, there's another scene where like the President Obama character comes in there and he can't open the things because the codes have been mixed. All of a sudden he's like, my card won't work. And then all of a sudden John plugs into it. And John says, go handle your business. I can open this door. And he said it with so much authority. And you see, you got to pause it right there. Because open doors reference to the Bible. People who get keys. Revelation chapter 3 talks about keys. Paul Leon chapter 9:11 talks about keys to the bottomless pit. And there's this person who will be able to open and close doors that other people can't. And so, you know, he got this pin and hacks into the bank. And it reminds me of the pin I got on the government phone, you know, where I keep pinned into this ATM. I've got my government phone. They gave me a 7-Eleven pin number, right? And when John was young, he had a small motorbike. It was funny too, because like Arnold had the Harley, John had the dirt bike, right? But he did have a little two-wheel motorcycle. So there's this thing too where somebody comes in there. Oh, Reese comes in a dream in Sarah, right? So she keeps having a dream of this boy's dad. And he says, Sarah, John's the target now. You need to wake up. You're not the target now. And right there is important too, because it's separating legends. It's when one legend's job is over and another legend is rising up. See, the mom, then the son. He says, John's the target now, just like she was in part 1. See what I'm saying? And so Sarah's job is over, and now the movement has shifted to the sons and the daughters. The sons and daughters always will rise above the fathers and mothers. That's how God ordered things to happen, right? After King David came King Solomon. After King Solomon came this. And so, you know, this is important stuff, right? So these movies are hard, and I know how the stress of my mother. My father, he ran and deluded himself with drugs, so he didn't get involved in anything. So I did see the stress of my mom growing up and the pain in her chambers, you know, and I'm even stronger than her. So I was able to see what she's going through, and it sucks, you know, because it seems like me and her, just like Sarah and John, they're these apocalyptic individuals that they can't run from it. You know, they try their best to run from it, but they end up right in the middle of it all. You know, and that's the story of my life, story of her life. And it's just how this cookie crumbles, dude, how it bakes in the oven there. So the black man, Mr. Dyson, his name is Miles Dyson in the movie, is the actor dialogue who's backing Barack Obama. So this guy is playing a role for future Barack Obama, right? And we know this because he had this famous speech where he's like, you're too small-minded to govern your own affairs. You must surrender your rights to an all-power sovereignty, right? So, and Mr. Dyson in this movie was making an AI system, a quantum system that would, a new neural system, right? And we know this is true because his part in this movie reminds me of his speech that I just told you about, the sovereign system of AI, right? And the first fight, Arnold has a box too. He has a box with a shotgun in it with a dozen roses. You know, that's huge too. That's code lingo to talk to somebody. Right? This is lingo to talk to somebody. And so, you know, the game was playing, so when John was playing this game and the T-1000 was looking for him, it backed up the view a little bit. And there's this big old yellow word that said rescue. And it had an arrow pointing to John. It was saying rescue. See, this is a code for somebody. This is a roadmap that somebody's going to watch. And the dialogue is going to explode inside them, right? You got to catch all this stuff, right? So John tried to go into the high voltage room, but he couldn't open the door. And so watching movies, for me, this is like daily news. This is all secret map. And then Arnold, he ends up opening the high voltage room and then puts John in there. He, bam, opens it and then puts John in the high voltage room. That's important too. Electricity. So it seems like T-1000 seems to be like a Michael Myers or something. And he even killed Max. And the name Max goes also in a lot of movies. If you look at a lot of movies, a lot of German Shepherd movies, the dog's name is Max, right? You have a Disney program, the Max trilogy. You have Max in Terminator. Max is a huge name, dude. They've been beefing up the name Max in German Shepherd for years. And you got to catch these things, right? So he's always a protector. And he's an inspector of corrupt bitches who need sniffed out. That's what I wrote down. So, and then Sarah, she got to a point where she just became silent because everyone started asking her all these stupid questions, and then she was plotting her revenge and her escape, right? So that's right there too. So it's funny to me when the number 1 and 2 switch and the ex-legend has to meet the new legend. So Sarah has to meet the new legend, which is her own son, right? And now it's 2 legends, but one's like a legend who finished their job and now a legend's just starting their job. This happens in life a lot. And you always see this massive ego trip, frustration between them. The movies paint it off as heroic, but in real life, it never happens like the movies. People struggle with handing over that legend key to the other legend. It's just so difficult. And I feel sorry for the Jezebels in the latter days because there's going to be a huge judgment on them because of this inability to hand things over. And so that's crazy. So let's see here. It's amazing how the actors and producers somehow build together. At this moment, I couldn't really help but go, wow, you guys really know how to build together. And it's like you start using your imagination. Like, are you talking to demons? Are you summoning future visions of people? Like, how do you see all this stuff? And then you realize you're like, wow, dude. And then it starts breaking down the big 6 that own everything. And you're like, well, if they all work together and they're just a small group of people, it would actually be easy to do what they're doing. They just make it look like, because if the whole world's ran by 6 corporations, it actually would be easy to do something like this because you'd all be on the same page because there wouldn't be that much diversity because the big 6 would just be, rocking and rolling and stuff like that. So, I always wondered about that. Let's see here. And the headlights go out on the car. So they get away from, they rescue Sarah, and all of a sudden they're driving down this desert road or mountain road, and all of a sudden it shows the headlight, and it turns off. And all of a sudden Arnold's driving fast, and then John says, "Can you see anything? It's dark." And then Arnold says, "I can see everything." And he said it in a way to do something. I think he spoke the book of Daniel verse where it says he will be intrigued and know all mystery and stuff, right? He says, "I see everything." And then it showed his vision at that point where it's like trees on the right and he was able to connect stuff. So that was an important thing too. And this is I wrote that down too. This is the riddle towards the riddle master in the book of Daniel. So see how all these puzzles are everywhere, right? They have to reveal themselves because the scriptures, it's universal law. So it's fun because people want to say stupid, but in reality, Hollywood makes these movies all for a certain reason, right? This is their Bible. This is the builder's Bible on earth. The builder's Bible is movies and articulation with each other, right? And so when they reached the outer rim of the city, they ate at the same gas station where Sarah, I caught this, I've never caught this before. When they went out and traveled out of the city, they were at that same gas station where Sarah was with her Jeep. And I had to pause it and I was like, whoa, right? And they drove down, it showed the same view of the same dirt road she drove down. But this time, there was a Joshua Trees and there was a charter bus. It showed a big old bus and it said charter on it, right? Which I don't really know what that means yet, but it means something, And Sarah asked John too when they're at the store. She says, "Do you have any money?" And John says, he pulls out his inheritance. He says, "Yeah, I got $200." And he says, "I'll give you half, Mom." And then she reaches and takes the whole wad of money. And then he's like, "Mom!" And then she's like, "I'm gonna go get some food." And see what I'm saying? I had to pause it there because when I started coming clean and my eyes were open, a lot of people from the street started automatically we'd be talking in conversations and they would shift to how your family will try to steal your inheritance. John, that was a universal code. When he pulled out inheritance, he even said, "I'll give you half, Mom." And she took it all. She went and grabbed it and took it all, right? And John was pissed off. That right there was talking about a future event for somebody. That's what it was. That's why they do stuff like this. And you can think not, but it's true, right? So he says, "I'll split it with you, Mom." She takes it all. So get some food. I've heard others speak in this regards to me, so it's a huge deal. So, and what's funny too is like, what's hard for me when I do this is because people like James Cameron, everyone who made Terminator is watching this. They're listening to it. So all these people who made Terminator they're checking their notes because they don't even know everything. And now they're going, "Holy crap, dude." And now they're all tripping out because they have to come to realization of these scriptures coming to pass too. That's what makes this kind of hard for me to do. It's a fearful thing because, it's hard to speak out on this stuff because they don't want it. They want mystery, but there's a group out there who God made to end the mystery and to reveal everything in the dark. And I'm one of them, right? And so it's a hard thing. So, Mike Dyson or Miles Dyson, the Cyberman, his wife doesn't look like Michael. Some reason I see Kamala Harris in her. And so I see Kamala Harris. Just in case. So I see Kamala Harris in this video and his wife. It may have a dialogue, but I'm not sure. But I would assume with she some reason reminds me of Kamala. You know what I'm saying? And she wanted quality time with Miles, and she starts getting onto him because he's building this thing, and she says this thing. And I want you to think of the Jetson shirt in the beginning of part 1, which is sons, babies. And then Kamala says, "Why don't you unplug and spend time with your other babies?" See? So now she called out, he was working on his babies. See what I'm saying? She referenced his technology thing to babies. And then his wife even said that. "Take a break from those babies and come talk to these babies." See, that's huge right there. Because you have the 2 witnesses, you have the 2 babies. There's actually going to be 4 babies throughout Earth that the world is going to be revolving around. And so that's what this is all talking about, right? So, and you got to remember, part 1 was Sarah, had the Jetson shirt. Miles' wife refers to the Cyber Project as babies. So all these movies are like puzzle database. It's like a big old Da Vinci Code for us to figure out. So the creativity is amazing at this point. I was kind of tripping out on this. And Sarah, her eyes are stuck on Judgment Day, right? Because she has this ability to know these people too. That's why she wants to kill them. Because, obviously if you see somebody, Miles was the one responsible for 3 billion deaths. So you can connect that with the horseman in the book of Revelation, the pale horse. He will kill 3 billion people on planet Earth. So she wanted to take this guy out because then 3 billion people would live and there'd have to be some another person to rise up. Right? So that's the whole point of this. And you connect that with the Bible. So, let's see. And at this point I was wondering, I said, these producers of these movies also have these depths and visions and knowing, and I think they all band together, and it's a multi-use organization. So you take all these producers and they must have some code book where they have to go off of the same dialogues and they just switch it, flip it, beat it, turn it, change it just a little bit. They turn it from green to blue, but the same dialogue being green and blue is the same dialogue, So Miles and his wife has a son named Danny. So as they're shooting at Miles, he has a boy named Danny. This is huge too. Danny's a very important character in the world in the last days. So she's going, run, Daddy. And then his dad is getting ready to get killed by Sarah. And then Danny jumps on his dad like this. And he's like, don't hurt my daddy, right? And then, so that's huge too, because Danny's a very important puzzle piece, right? And so I took note of that because I met a couple Dannys in my life, and they're both very huge people in the Indies, right? So the kid in the movie also was wearing a hat that had a solo letter M on it, a black hat. His dad had a plain black hat, and he had a hat with just a big old M on it. See what I'm saying? The letter M is important. The letter R. If you ever see R's in Hollywood, huge importance. R, M, I mean, these things are huge, right? So they're very important in the game. And you have to watch movies again and again. You can't catch everything like I told you. So there's things I didn't catch. I can probably watch those movies again and catch some new stuff, right? Every time you read the Bible, you catch something different. It's because you're always learning. So let's break down when Sarah and the Terminator told Dyson he would be responsible for the death of 3 billion people. They came up to this man who saw his vision as something great to society. And then these people show up, John, Terminator, and Sarah. And they said, you're the horseman. You're gonna be responsible for 3 billion deaths. And then he paused and he's like, so I'm being judged of crimes I haven't even done yet? That's what he said. He said, I'm being judged of crimes I haven't even done yet. And then Sarah starts breaking down like, you men are the ones who made the hydrogen bomb. So you're responsible. Like you build in glory, but then your glory turns into napalm fire, right? That's what she was trying to say. So they wanted to pause. They're trying to say like, don't do this, destroy your stuff, because then you're going to save a lot of people. You're going to postpone Judgment Day, right? More people will live. So they break into Cyberville, and the codes get scrambled, and John comes with the key. He's able to open this door. So that's also a huge puzzle piece going right there. Apollyon. And so Dyson, he's a trigger. There's this point where Dyson's holding this thing. There's this 3 canisters of explosive. And these cops are coming in. Sarah barely makes it out. Arnold Schwarzenegger breaks through a wall to rescue Sarah. Like literally, he crushes through a wall and grabs her and says, come with me, right? And then Dyson, Obama, is holding this thing and he's been shot and he's losing his, he's on his last breath. And he's trying his hardest to hold this thing because when he dies, he lets off his trigger and then it triggers this bomb. And so he's just like, and then these cops come and he wanted to save them. He's like, I don't know how much longer I can hold this trigger. And then they look and they put together the puzzle. They go, this dude's going to blow up. And so they run, right? And then he takes his last breath and then his hands let off. And the trigger happens. Boom, blow up. See, that's important. That's a significant thing. A lot of you would just say, what? He just let go of this thing. It's because you're in the first stage of decoding. That's a universal read, right? I just showed you the universal read of it. So when he drops it, he's a trigger, dude. A trigger, right? And now all this terminology starts to come alive. I've been called a trigger. You might have been called a trigger, right? So, and then it blew up. So the character he's probably triggered in real life is capable of explosion, right? So then you also have the T-1000. He gets into a helicopter, right? And the chopper is a huge role in the puzzle piece of movies. Helicopter's so huge. I've had dreams of a helicopter coming on me and Timmy in the scaffold building dream. You have the January 6th rundown, and every time they show you the picture of the event, it's scaffolding, and they show you people on the scaffold, right? And then the helicopter comes in my dream, and it has a big old gun, and then I run up the mountain, right? So you have the T-1000 is always driving the helicopter, and Terminator even used the terminology whenever he was going and they saw the helicopter, Terminator felt him, and he said, it's him. When he says stuff like that, it's him. You look at Thessalonians when it says, and he will be revealed, the man. So whenever you hear stuff called the man or him, it's referring to like either probably the Antichrist, the devil himself, or someone very high up there on that warrior totem pole. So, yeah, I told you about that. And when you break down the name, helicopter, right? Has the word hell in it, the word I, copter. Like, it's a huge symbolic name, dude. And then you have the last battle of Terminator 2. It reminds me of the story my mom told me, right? Because there's this point where John, she throws him down a chute, and then this belt is taking him away, and the T-1000 comes by and he like pins her in her shoulder, and then he starts saying, "Call out to John." So she wanted him to like motherly call out to him, "John, it's me, come!" And then the T-1000 was going to kill him, right? And then she says, "No, F you, motherfucker." And then he puts by her eye, right? And he starts, shooting his little thing out there, and he's going to slowly hurt her and say, "Call out to John." She kept saying that. And when my mom taught me and the kids, me and my brothers, sisters, she said, first thing she told us, she was crazy. She says, "Now, if they pin me against the wall and they try to torture me and use me to try to get to you, let me die." That's the first thing my mother taught us when I was 6 years old, dude. She, some parents don't say that. My mom did. Sarah Connor did. And so I was like, whoa. So, but she refused. And before that, she shot the T-1000 in the eye. So when she had the shotgun, it hit him in the eye, and all of a sudden it showed a view of him. He had one eye in and one eye out. Total huge puzzle piece. This one's easy, though. This goes from universal to you should catch this right here at the beginning stage of decoding. Totally the one eye on, one eye off is the Antichrist. And so, that's the mark of the Antichrist and the Illuminati. So when you add up these puzzle pieces, you know what the team... So if you're a universal coder, it should be easy at this point to figure out what team is making these movies, right? It shouldn't be that difficult at this point. So, the movie is a bitter and sweet reality that good deeds do not get us a ticket to heaven, right? Because you have the T-1000, who's obviously evil, and then you have Terminator, who was evil, then he's good, but he's also shoots people and kills people, and then people are trying to train him, and then even he's like, "You can't just kill people," and then he looks at John and says, "But I'm a Terminator." He's almost like, "This is what I do," right? And then so they're trying to teach him. But what's funny is T-1000 and Terminator fall into the same final path. And so at this point, I had this epiphany of these movies, right? And you look at it, and you see this battle throughout history. Star Wars, you have Vader and the Sith, but you also have the other team. And a lot of people assume that the rebels are like these heavenly warriors, but not really. See, you have this separation in the kingdom of darkness in the world where you have people. It's almost how they just get by in life. They have to do something because the wicked have no rest. So they build this dialogue where there's a ultra evil side, but then there's a rebel side against the evil side, even though both sides are wicked, right? In Star Wars, it's all witchcraft, right? So they're fighting each other, but Vader and the Jedis have the same destination. They're both just like T-1000 and Terminator. Terminator represents the rebel force who's fighting for Luke Skywalker. And then T-1000, he represents kind of like the Darth Vader thing. But they ended up in the same pool of fire. So when you look at this is what goes down. And you got to catch this and figure out where you stand in life these last days, right? So you have Vader and the rebels. You have good witches and bad witches these days. You have white Wicca and black Wicca. So you have witches who are using it for good and the bad witches using it for bad. But both sets of witches fall into the same fiery pit, just like Terminator and just like the other one, right? So you have the Marvel heroes. Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, and Thanos are going to the same place, just like T-1000 and Terminator. See? Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, they represent the Terminator kind of thing. And then Thanos represents the T-1000 kind of thing, right? And it's called the lesser of two evils. So it's a beautiful view also of the gift of the free will God has given us. This also paints free will on a huge scale, right? And so my final thoughts of this is It was pretty cool to dissect this movie and decode it, and I learned a lot, dude. And I'm sure you guys have learned a lot too. Just, I'm sure a lot of you have already read on my notes on my phone, right? Unless they cut transmission or something, but I'm sure they didn't do that. But if you have any questions, I'm going to put the email in the bottom link. And if you find out anything about movies too, let me know. I think it's pretty fun. It gives you something to do, and it's pretty exciting. So if you want to decode your first movie and you find out some cool stuff and you want like a nerd guy to talk about it with you, email me, please. I would love to hear what you found out, about your life, because my life, a lot of you are watching me figure out the pieces and you're like blown away. But what if you're in a movie too and someone's dialoguing you? And the only way you're going to know is if you dive into that rabbit hole and start searching.